Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Okay, so get this. A pretty big chunk of you listeners,
Mm.
especially if you're between like 17 and 25.
Yeah.
Well, researchers have found that a lot of you are probably night owls.
Yeah.
Like you're way more likely to be staying up late and waking up later. And get this, that whole night owl thing, it might be linked to depression.
Yeah, and what's really cool is that this isn't just like some random idea someone had. Like, we're diving into an actual study, with real data and stuff.
Right.
For this deep dive, we've got a study that was published in PLoS ONE, which is a pretty well-known scientific journal. Plus, we're looking at a health news article about it from March of this year, 2025.
So fresh.
Yeah.
Right.
So both of these, the study and the article, they're based on research by Simon Evans and his team over at the University of Surrey. And they're trying to figure out why this link between being a night owl and depression might exist, especially for younger people.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. Like, why might someone who naturally prefers staying up late, I think the researchers call it having an evening chronotype.
Yeah.
Why might that be linked to a higher chance of being depressed?
Right.
Especially, as you said, when you're a young adult. We're going to look at what this study found and what it all could mean if you're one of those people who feels most alive, when everyone else is winding down for the night.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did these researchers actually do? Like, how did they go about exploring this connection?
Well, they didn't actually do a clinical trial or anything where they changed what people were doing. It was more about understanding people's existing habits and feelings.
Right. Okay.
So they had this online questionnaire, right? And 546 university students decided to take part.
Wow, that's a decent sample size.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So in the questionnaire, they asked people about their usual sleep patterns, like when they like to go to bed and wake up. And then they also asked about their mindfulness. That's the ability to be aware of what's happening right now without judging yourself, just being present. And then they asked about rumination, too, which is when you get stuck in those negative thought loops that just keep going round and round in your head.
Yeah. We all know those.
Oh, yeah. And they asked about how much alcohol people were drinking each week, like how many units they usually had. Plus, really importantly, they had some standard measures to figure out people's levels of depression and anxiety.
So just to be clear, they collected all this information at just one point in time, right?
Right, exactly. It's what's called a cross-sectional study. So it's like taking a snapshot of people's lives.
Right. Okay.
You get a good look at how things are at that moment, but you don't really know what happened before or what might happen after.
Gotcha. So it's not like a perfect way to figure out cause and effect.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the limitations, which we'll talk more about later. But for now, let's focus on what they actually found.
Okay. Yeah. What did they find?
Well, good news and bad news. First, the bad news, I guess. The study confirmed what other studies have kind of hinted at before. Young adults who said they were evening types, those night owls, they reported a much higher risk of being depressed compared to the people who were morning types, or even those who fell somewhere in between.
Okay, so the night owls are more likely to be depressed.
Yeah.
And the morning larks, like happy as can be.
Well, at least less depressed.
Yeah. Okay.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay, hit me.
They found a few key things that seem to be linked to this connection between being a night owl and depression. And these weren't just random things that happened to be there.
Right.
They actually seem to be acting as pathways, explaining how those late nights might be leading to a greater chance of feeling depressed.
Oh, that is interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so what were these mysterious pathways?
Well, there were three main ones. One was having worse sleep overall, like the quality of their sleep was just not as good. The second was drinking more alcohol. And the third was scoring lower on certain parts of that mindfulness questionnaire.
So basically, how well you sleep, how much you drink, and how mindful you are. Those are the big three, at least according to this study.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about liking to stay up late, It's how that preference actually plays out in your life, how it affects your sleep habits, what you choose to do with your time, like whether you drink more, and even how well you're able to stay focused and aware of your experiences.
Yeah, I see. So let's unpack these three pathways a little bit more. First, there's sleep quality. You said the evening types reported having worse sleep overall. How did they even measure that?
Right. So they used this well-established tool called the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index. Basically, it's this questionnaire that asks about all these different parts of your sleep, like how long it usually takes you to fall asleep, how many times you wake up during the night, and how rested you feel during the day. And based on your answers, you get a score.
Okay.
And a higher score means you have worse sleep quality.
Gotcha.
And the evening types in this study, they had higher scores on this index, meaning they weren't sleeping as well as the other chronotypes.
Okay, so the night owls are more likely to be depressed, and they're also not sleeping as well.
Right.
But why? Like, what's the connection there?
Well, think about it this way. If your body naturally wants to go to bed later and wake up later, but you have to wake up early for work or school,
Yeah.
you end up fighting your natural sleep rhythm.
Yeah.
And that can mess with your sleep big time.
So it's like having jet lag all the time?
Exactly. It's called social jet lag.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Your body is on one time zone, but society is on another.
Right.
And that constant mismatch can really disrupt your sleep, leading to poorer quality overall.
Makes sense. So to all those night owls out there who are dragging themselves out of bed at 7 a.m. every morning, even though your body's screaming for more sleep,
Right.
this is why you might be feeling extra groggy and maybe even a little down.
It's not just about being tired, it's about fighting your own biology.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so sleep check. What about the alcohol?
Okay, so yeah, the study found that the evening types were more likely to say they were drinking more alcohol every week. Now, keep in mind, they were just reporting this themselves, so it's based on their memory, not like we were watching them drink or anything.
Right.
But still, it was a pretty clear pattern.
Okay, interesting. So does this mean that if you're a night owl, you're automatically going to want to drink more?
Well, not necessarily. It might be more about the social stuff that happens later in the day, like going out with friends, parties, that kind of thing. Those things usually happen later at night and often involve alcohol. And if you're someone who feels more energetic and social later in the day, you might be more likely to end up in those situations.
Right. So it's not your inner clock making you want to drink more.
Right.
It's that the things you're more likely to be doing during your peak hours might just involve more alcohol.
Exactly. It's more about the lifestyle that often comes with being a night owl.
Interesting. Okay, so sleep quality and alcohol, we've got those two pathways down. What about this mindfulness thing?
Right. So for mindfulness, they used a questionnaire called the 5-facet mindfulness questionnaire short form.
Oh, catchy.
It basically measures different aspects of mindfulness, like how good you are at being present and all that. And the two areas where evening types scored lower were acting with awareness and describing.
Okay, I have no idea what those mean. Can you break it down for us?
Yeah, sure. So acting with awareness is all about being totally present in whatever you're doing. Like really paying attention to the task at hand and not letting your mind wander off or start judging yourself. It's the difference between, say, scrolling through your phone without even realizing what you're looking at versus actually sitting down and reading an article and absorbing the information.
Yeah.
And what the study suggests is that night owls might have a harder time being in that absorbing state.
So like being present and in the moment is harder for them.
Yeah, it seems like it might be. And the researchers think this could be tied to the whole sleep quality issue.
Okay.
If you're constantly tired or your sleep is all messed up, it's going to be way harder to focus and really be present.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what about this describing thing?
Right. So describing is about being able to notice what's going on inside you, particularly your emotions, and then actually putting words to it.
Okay.
So it's like instead of just feeling kind of generally bad or uneasy, you're able to say to yourself, okay, right now I'm feeling anxious. And labeling your emotions like that can help you step back from them a little bit and maybe manage them better.
Right, so naming it to tame it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I like that.
And what the study found was that evening types were less likely to be able to do that. Like they weren't as good at recognizing and labeling their emotions.
So that could mean they have a harder time dealing with their emotions.
Yeah, possibly. And if you're not as good at understanding and regulating your emotions, it could contribute to you being more likely to experience depression.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, are we saying that being a night owl directly causes all these things, the poor sleep, the drinking, the lower mindfulness?
Well, not quite. And that's where those limitations come in.
Right. We need to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
Exactly. Like just because the study found a connection doesn't mean we know for sure which thing is causing the other. It's possible that being a night owl makes you more likely to have these other issues, but it could also be the other way around. Maybe if you're already feeling depressed, it messes with your sleep, makes it harder to be mindful, or maybe even leads you to drink more. Like, we don't know for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's a two-way street, potentially.
Exactly. And there's another limitation, too.
Okay, lay it on me.
Remember how we said that all the information in this study was self-reported?
Yeah, they were filling out questionnaires, right?
Right. And those questionnaires are really useful, but we have to remember that people don't always have perfect memories, and sometimes they might even answer in a way they think is more socially acceptable,
Yeah, like they might not want to admit to certain things.
Exactly. So it's possible that the information isn't completely accurate, even though everyone was trying their best.
Okay, that's fair. So self-reporting has its downsides. What else do we need to keep in mind?
Well, another thing is that the people in the study were all university students.
Right.
So we can't be sure if these findings would apply to other groups of people, like older adults or people who aren't in school.
Yeah, different lifestyles, different pressures, different
Exactly. And one more thing.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah, well, in this study, most of the participants were female.
Okay.
And we already know that men and women can be different in terms of their chronotypes and their likelihood of experiencing depression.
Right.
So it would be really interesting to see if these findings hold true when you have a more balanced mix of men and women.
Gotcha. So there's definitely room for more research.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always more to learn.
Okay, so we've talked about the findings and the limitations.
Right.
What's the big takeaway here? Like, what are the researchers themselves saying about what they learned?
They're basically saying that these specific aspects of mindfulness, especially the acting with awareness part, along with sleep and alcohol consumption, they all seem to be really important for understanding why evening chronotypes might be more likely to experience depression.
Okay.
And they think that these findings could help us figure out how to create better ways to help people who are struggling, especially young adults.
Okay, so more research is needed, but this study gives us some pretty good clues about what to focus on.
Exactly.
So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wait, I'm a total night owl, what should you be doing with this information?
Well, even though this study can't tell us for sure what causes what, it's still worth thinking about. Like, pay attention to your sleep habits.
Right?
Are you constantly feeling sleep deprived? Do you find yourself drinking a lot, especially in the evenings? How would you describe your ability to be present and mindful in your everyday life?
Yeah, this isn't about beating yourself up if you realize you're not doing so well in some of these areas. It's more about just becoming more aware of your own patterns.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you could start to think about what you might want to change. Like maybe try adding some mindfulness exercises to your day, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Or, try to stick to a more regular sleep schedule, even if it's a later one that works for you. And hey, if you realize you're drinking a lot, especially when you're out late with friends, maybe think about cutting back a bit.
Right. These are all things that might help, even if we don't have all the definitive answers yet.
Exactly. And if you're the kind of person who likes to dive deep into the details, we'll include a link to the original PLoS ONE article in the show notes. That way you can check it out for yourself.
Perfect. Okay, so wrapping this all up, it seems like there's a pretty strong link between being a night owl as a young adult and having a higher risk of depression.
Right.
And this study suggests that mindfulness, sleep, and alcohol consumption are all important pieces of the puzzle.
Definitely. And the main thing to remember is that this information can help you make choices that support your own well-being.
Absolutely. And the research isn't over.
Right.
More studies are going to be done looking at different people and using different methods.
Yeah.
And those studies will hopefully give us an even clearer picture of how our natural rhythms and our mental health are connected.
Yeah, totally.
And one final thought, I guess, to leave you with.
Yeah.
Our society is really set up for morning people, right?
So what does that mean for all the night owls out there? How are they being affected in school, at work, and just in life in general?
Right.
And is there anything we can do to create a world that's more supportive of people who just naturally function on a different schedule? Something to think about, maybe.
Yeah, definitely something to think about.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.